Hello YouTube, this is Russ Strock. It is the 30th of January 2025 and I'm here today to share with you my experience over the past 13 months after I applied for retirement from the federal government. I applied for retirement on January 1st of 2024, and after really a full year now, I feel like I have my FERS Supplement finalized and accurate or reasonably accurate from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. So let me launch into my story. And I'm sitting here where I make a few YouTube videos about beekeeping in the back. I've got winemaking, I have solar panels. So I've been very busy and staying engaged in my retirement over this past year. But I want to share with you my journey, which I think is experienced by many others, I don't know how many others, and offer you some tips for how to navigate federal retirement in the event you experience some issues. So first, let me start by sharing with you, and I won't go through all of these documents in detail, that beginning in 2021, a 3 years before I retired, I began getting estimates from my agency at the time on what my retirement pension would look like. And I did that right up until the end of 2023, just a couple months before I retired. And I would get these monthly statements of, these estimates of monthly benefits. And they looked good to me. They looked like they were accurate. They looked reasonable. My years of service was at the time, 37 years, 1 month, 5 days. I had over a year of sick leave. So when I retired, I expected that the Office of Personnel Management would come up with something similar, something that I could sort of key back to the estimates from my agency. And first, I want to also say that I'm not making this video to bash anybody at any agency or any of the individuals. Nearly everybody I worked with was well-intended and I think doing their best under trying circumstances. So most of the guidance that you get from the Office of Personnel Management says you may have to wait 3 to 5 months, even 6 months or more, if you were involved in a divorce. I was involved in a divorce, and so is about half of the American public. So I waited 6 months before I really reached out to the Office of Personnel Management and began asking the status of my retirement package. And during those 6 months, I was put on an interim payment status. And OPM is very clear that you'll put you in interim pay that may be 40, 50, or 60% of what they expect to pay you after your retirement is fully adjudicated. My monthly payment was much less than 40%. It was somewhere around a third, even less than a third. So I was concerned, but I had planned for up to 6 months of some kind of very reduced payment. So tip number one is it is really important to plan, not just for the 3 to 5 months or 6 months, but to plan for more. In my case, I needed to plan for a year. So as I said, I began to call the Office of Personnel Management about 5 or 6 months after I got into retirement to see what is the status. They provide you with a 1888 phone number. You get a front desk clerk after waiting. They can look up your case using your retirement number, your CSA number, and they'll tell you, well, it is in such and such a phase of review. It got there on such a date, it's been there for 2 weeks. Well, after a few weeks of calling them and getting the update, they began to tell me that their system works much like a, quote, production line, and that once it leaves the court-ordered branch, the package is then mailed back to the processing specialists, which I believe is Boyers, Pennsylvania. And so, but when I would call and find out what the status was 2, 3 weeks later, they would say that yes, it has arrived with a specialist, but it hasn't been assigned, and that it can take up to 14 days for a package to be assigned. They also explained to me that they really don't have an electronic system for transferring these records. that they mail these packages from office to office. So apparently the court-ordered branch is in Washington, D.C., the processing branch is in Pennsylvania. They mail the packages back and forth. So many times when I called, the package had left one office, was on its way to another, and it was not even assigned to a person, and it could take up to 2 weeks. I was told many times to be patient, that it would be assigned, and that somebody would get back to me. Nobody ever got back to me. So I was diligently following up on really 2 to 3 week intervals, June, July, August, September. Around October 1st, middle of October, I got what's called the Blue Book, which it's not blue, but it's what they call it is it's your adjudicated statement of benefits from the Office of Personnel Management. So after all of these calls, after all these inquiries, I got a final statement of benefits. And in here, it lists, it's personalized. This one's dated October 16th. I tried to black out some of the personnel information. You can see in here too that it lists here my monthly benefit. But what I wanted to point out here is on this page, it lists my years of service right in here. It's 29 years of service and 2 months. So after waiting 10 and a half months, also up here is my average salary. I blocked it out, but it was incorrect. Your high 3 salary was incorrect, and my years of service were wrong. But after 37 years, I looked at OPM as the IRS, as the IRS is to taxes. I looked at OPM as the master of personnel records for the federal government. How do you take up an issue with OPM? After all these months, in my view, they got it wrong. I actually panicked at this point because they call this an adjudicated statement of benefits. They have made their determination, and at this point, I was advised that I could file an appeal. This is the last thing that I wanted to do after 10 and a half months of waiting for my government pension, was to have to file an appeal. But what these benefits actually showed was that I didn't have enough years of service to retire with a full benefit, so I was being penalized for early retirement. And because, according to their calculations, I didn't have enough years, I also didn't get the FERS Supplement, which I had relied on. I was 58 years old when I retired. I'm 59 now, but I was planning on that supplement until I reached 62, in addition to my FERS pension. So literally, I was really confused about what to do. What do I do at this point? I now have a final adjudicated statement of benefits. I have called OPM many, many times, and I never really could talk to anybody knowledgeable of my case because I was told by their clerical staff that it's like a production line and there's nobody that's actually in charge of your package. It just kind of moves from one person to another. So somebody might look at your creditable service. Somebody else might look at the quarterly benefits for divorce, etc. So finally, I did a couple of things. One was I reached out to the person who prepared my court order acceptable for processing documentation, the FERS guy, Dan Jameson. He was very helpful, gave me some reassuring comments. And I ultimately reached out to my congressional representative since I had nobody at OPM that I could talk to with information about the case. And they took some information from me and they helped out considerably as well. The last thing I did, which I think was also very important, again, these are tips for those of you who may be planning to retire soon or being encouraged to retire soon. I reached back to my employing agency that I retired from, and I explained the situation to them, and they were very, very helpful and had some back channel route to actually talk to people at OPM. I got sort of an indirect message back from my employing agency saying that at that time I had already found a person to talk to at OPM, and so they just confirmed that they were now in conversation with me. But my employing agency that I retired from, put together a calculation of my creditable service, again, since that seemed to be one of the major areas that was a problem. And they sent me a summary of the creditable service that was in their computer system. So this again demonstrated that I had 37 years federal service plus over a year of sick leave. My agency that I retired from also put together a document for my transmittal to OPM that included all of my SF50s, my past work histories. They're all in here going all the way back to 1986. But before I could reach my employing agency and obtain these documents from them, these boxes over my left shoulder have all of my employment records going back to my very first job with the Soil Conservation Service in New York, where I started as a soil conservationist trainee in the summer of 1986. I had that SF50 in my records, and I had all of the subsequent SF50s from the other agencies that I transferred to and worked for over that 37-year career history. After I watched numerous YouTube videos and began studying this, one of the videos said, "Are you sure that you contributed to FERS throughout your entire career, your federal career?" Well, I started to check box. I can't remember which box it is, but I began to check the boxes on all of those SF50s. And in fact, I did contribute to FERS throughout the whole process. But honestly, I was terrified that I had somehow made a massive mistake that I was not going to be able to correct with OPM. Finally, I reached somebody at OPM, was able to talk to them, and they asked me if I would make a PDF of those records from my employing agency and transmit them to OPM, which I did. They transmitted them in turn to the court-ordered branch, and between the processing branch and the court-ordered branch, they began to reconcile my case. So then I waited another several weeks, and I began to talk to a couple of individuals at OPM, and they recalculated my my benefits and determined that I had, as you can see here on November 4th, well, I don't want to show you the actual names and so on, but and salary, but they had determined that I had 29 years and 2 months of service, and that they changed that to 37 years and 1 month. So it still wasn't the 38 I was expecting. So I wrote them back. I got yet another letter saying that my adjudicated retirement had been calculated incorrectly. It was an admission from OPM that they had incorrectly adjudicated my case, and they were going to issue retroactive payments to make up the difference. So I got a retroactive payment first for changing my retirement from 29 years to 37 years. There was a retroactive payment made. Then I got another retro payment for the missing 1 year of sick leave that is added to your creditable service. But all of these adjustments, I still had not received any payment for 11 months for my FERS supplement, for the annuity supplement. So I've continued to go back and forth with OPM about the supplement. And they assured me that I would indeed be getting the supplement. They assured me by phone that I would indeed get the supplement and that I should have it in 3 to 5 business days. And so I waited. After the 5th business day, I did not get a supplement. There was no retro payment. So I contacted them again, and I was told, be patient. It will come. And they looked. I waited another 7 days. They looked and said that for some reason it was kicked out of their system. They re-entered it, told me to be patient. That time I was told to wait 5 to 7 business days. I did ultimately get a retroactive payment in December for the final amount that I was due for the supplement. Literally 11 months of no supplement, and all paid in one lump sum as a retroactive payment. They told me it was going to be a net amount. It turned out to be a gross amount, so no taxes were taken out of any of the retroactive payments, and there were 3 of them, 2 large ones and 1 small one. No retroactive payments. At the end of 2024, I received a summary of payments. Again, I'm not going to go into this in detail because it has some privacy information on it, but the summary of payments for 2024 from OPM does not include any of the retroactive payments, which was the bulk of my salary for 2024. The final chapter in all of this that I want to sort of, I guess, highlight a couple things. One is that because the retroactive payments were so large and taxes were not taken out, I am going to owe substantial taxes this year. OPM also does not automatically take out state taxes, so I will owe taxes to my state government, income taxes. I do have the 1099-R retirement from OPM now, and it does show the total retirement income that they paid for the whole year, including the retro payments, and I'm in the process of figuring out what taxes are due. I expect I will have a penalty to the IRS since my tax bill really was not paid substantially during 2024. So there's a lot of lessons embedded in this video, but one of them is, make sure you plan well and you have some savings if you're going to retire. I think 3 to 5 months is a conservative end. Many people are divorced. That was the reason they kept giving me for such a delay. Number 2 is seek help. Seek help from the agency that you retired from. Make sure that you keep good records. Get the package that your agency sends to OPM so that you have all of those SF50s and all of those creditable service years in one place. If you have to, seek help from your congressional representative. I used the FERS guide. You can access him, Dan Jameson. He's really one of the most knowledgeable people in dealing with these court-ordered issues involving OPM where a divorce is involved. And 4th, there are some very good people at OPM and at our employing agencies. Once I could finally access the people working on my package at OPM, I got help. But the last phases in November and December, on 4 different occasions, OPM entered the retroactive payments and they were rejected. Once they were all kicked out because a COLA was being added, a cost of living adjustment. Another time their system was down. Another time they were having office problems, I'm not sure, ergonomic, air quality, some flood issues, I'm not sure what it was. But their computer systems were acting up. But it wasn't until the middle of December that I finally got all of my payments that were due, nearly 12 months after I retired. And I'm still cleaning up some of the messes now with taxes. So that's my advice. I am happy to answer any questions, but I hope that some of the tips that I've offered throughout this video save you all some grief. And just to know that once you get an adjudicated retirement statement in the mail, despite how much you might have been calling, it's still resolvable without filing some kind of an appeal of that adjudication. But they do have a post-adjudication office, and I was so worried my package was now mailed to the post-adjudication office, where I might experience the same problems I did with the other 2 offices as my package bounced around. So with that, feel free to leave any comments or questions. I'm happy to interact and engage in the comments section. I wish you a successful federal career and a very happy retirement. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.